Hi there. We're going to get started on our next session. Thank you so much for being here with us. A reminder that across the way is the CCA group, if you'd like to go listen in on them. We'll be chatting with our utility partners here. My name is Emily Nichols. I'm a strategist at Momentum, and it's my privilege to be here with our friends at Southern California Edison, SDG&E, PG&E, and SMUD. Let me introduce them really quickly, and then they're going to present where they're at with flexible load. We'll have some time for questions at the end. So a reminder that you can add those questions to the Zoom, whether you're here in the room or online. All right, so let me introduce Denver Hines. Denver is the principal electrical engineer and R&D load flexibility supervisor at Sacramento Municipal Utility District. We're also here today with Albert Chu, the principal product manager in integrated grid planning and innovation at Pacific Gas and Electric Company. And with us remotely, we have Jeff Deturi, the real-time pricing manager at San Diego Gas and Electric, and Eva Molnar, the senior manager of pricing implementation and customer service at Southern California Edison. And the first person that we'll be hearing from today is Eva.
Great, thank you. My name's Eva Molnar, as you mentioned, from Southern California Edison. First of all, really sorry I can't be there in person. I've actually been diagnosed with COVID, so hopefully you guys are glad that I'm on camera and not sitting next to you. I'd like to spend just a few brief moments giving you all an overview of the pilots that we've been working on. I'm really excited to share that with all of you today regarding dynamic rates. If we move to the next slide. Just wanted to give a brief overview. Southern California Edison is located in Southern California. As you can see from the map, we cover a large territory, broad range of, almost 5 million customer accounts. And the majority of those accounts today of non-res accounts are on time of use. And same with residential, over half of our customers are on time of use rates. So, if you move to the next slide. The goal that we've had at Edison the last few years is making sure that customers understand it's not just about how much you use, it's also about when you use electricity. And if we want to get to 100% renewable by 2045, that's a critical aspect of making sure that we reach our goals. So if you move to the next slide, I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about the pilots that we're offering today. There's our current flex rate pilot, and then as Achinsha mentioned earlier, there's the expanded flex rate pilot that we just got approval for actually just about 2 weeks ago, roughly. So I'll just spend just a few moments briefly talking about this. Our current pilot, we have about 40 customers on the pilot, a range of residential, non-residential, low-income, non-low-income customers. It's currently only available for bundled customers. Our flex rate pilot will be hopefully expanding to include customers who get their generation from other sources like CCAs. Currently, the pilot that we have today is only available if you have an automation service provider that's managing your equipment such as the thermostat. Moving forward with the expanded pilot, we hope to open it up to a broader range of technologies, including electric vehicles, as well as those customers who are interested in participating and they don't have an automation service provider and they want to participate directly with us. So how this works is we have we use the day ahead generation, CAISO generation rate, market prices, and we actually couple it with a dynamic distribution rate for the customer so they can get an idea of what the market-based prices are for day ahead. The customers put on a subscription. So the subscription price is based on their current tariff. They're staying on their current rates. And then any variances they have are based on the market rate. So this provides them with some sort of stability for the customer, and hopefully that is helps them and moderates the swings in potential swings in dynamic prices. From the aspect of the billing, like I mentioned, the customer stays on their current rates, and they're actually shadow billed for their for their dynamic rate. So if they save money, they get an extra amount. If they don't save money on the dynamic rate, then they're not harmed at all. So this is a no risk trial for our customers. If you move on to the next slide, I just wanted to briefly share some of our findings that we're seeing so far in our current pilot. Like I mentioned, we've got about 40 customers. A little over half are residential. We also have a mix of net energy metering and customers without solar. So what we're finding so far, I'll just kind of get to the highlights on here, but we did take a look at residential customers who have at least 5 months on the pilot. And what we see is there's winners and losers, right? There's no surprise there. Some are losing as much as 19%, some are saving as much as 31%. But overall, initial average savings for those non-solar customers is roughly about 5% above their current rate. So that's good news, right? That means that we're seeing that customers who are participating on this pilot so far, variety of different residential rates, but they're actually benefiting from being on this rate, and that bodes well for us. We're in the process of doing our evaluation to understand what the actual load shift is going to be for these customers, but so far the results are really promising. We have a couple of other learnings here, but I know that there's a lot of other speakers, so I don't want to hog all the time, but I just wanted to share that so far we're seeing some promising results. So I'll pass back to all of you.
Thank you, Eva. Up next, Albert Chu with PG&E.
Oh, is SDG.
And it's in a different order than I knew about. So up next, we have Jeff Dettori.
Hi, I'm Jeff Deturi, the Real-Time Pricing Manager for San Diego Gas and Electric. I'm going to be talking about our export compensation pilot, which is set to go live January 1st, 2025. Next slide, please. So just as an overview, San Diego Gas and Electric is the even more southern portion of California than SoCal Edison. We have 3.5 million customers. We serve the San Diego County region. We do gas and electric. And we've been in the clean vehicle dynamic pricing business for 8 years. So we've got some experience with real-time pricing. Next slide, please. As an overview of what our dynamic export compensation pilot is going to do, it's going to be available to all technologies, but we've limited it to just a few rate schedules to make it easier to do the billing for it. It consists of 2 marginal cost components, the California Independent System Operator, CAISO, day-ahead hourly pricing, and then a generation capacity component. The customer's import, consumption, and export will be netted at a 15-minute interval, so that will determine whether or not the customer is a net importer or a net generation or a net exporter. And then if all their imports will be charged at the otherwise applicable tariff, and they're going to be provided a bill credit for any electricity that's exported. So again, as long as there's no chance that they're going to lose money on this, any energy that they export will either get charged at $0 or paid credited at $0 or whatever that price is based on the CAISO day-ahead price, and if there's a capacity component that applies. I've included a link to our website that has more information on this pilot. And that wraps it up for SDG&E's export compensation pilot. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Let's discover together who's next. Albert.
All right. Next slide. Okay, PG&E, we serve Northern California, approximately 70,000 square miles. We have 16 million Californians, 25,000 employees, about 715,000 solar customers, And 500,000, I think that is an old number. I think this is like a last year's slide. So, we may up to like 550, 580 now. Next. Okay, so just want to briefly describe, Achinta have mentioned that we have multiple um, RTP pilots. This is the real-time pricing pilots that are focused on agriculture customers. That was actually funded by the Demand Response Emerging Technology Program, which I oversee. And basically, it's a 3-year pilot focused on agriculture customers, and it's hourly pricings and work very close to the VCE, Valley Clean Energy. And as a matter of fact, I think VC is actually presenting this pilot in details on the other side. So I do recommend that for anybody that who wants more detailed information, please go to the recording of that sessions, because there's a lot more details. So I'm actually not going to go through this. I just want to point out that we had the target is 5 megawatts. Right now, we have 7 customers with 66 accounts. So 7 big agriculture customers with 66 record service SAID, service agreement ID, and the KW reduction is at 3.9. So not quite my 5 megawatt yet, but hopefully we'll get there. Next slide, please. Okay, so just want to share some lesson learned. Again, probably not going to go through all of this. I think one of the major lesson learned is that the subscription portion of there is a subscription built into the CalFlexHub price design. It is trying to avoid the Texas, what happened in Texas, that, when it's kind of like an insurance for the customers, that if the price go too high, then they are not being penalized. Like not all their energy purchase, not all of their energy purchase is based on the real-time price. So the subscription price, it's a challenge, because to determine the subscription amount, it's something that I think the whole industry is almost like demand response baseline, right? There's really no silver bullet on baseline. It's just fundamentally a challenge to try to calculate how much a customer would have used without the event, right? So there's a lot of assumption. There has to be, because it's just like kind of predict the future, right? Like, so there are multiple ways to do baseline, but that there's mathematically there are ways that residential customer control group is the best, but for non-residential customer, maybe 510, maybe 1010, right? Same thing with subscription. It is a challenge. How do we set the subscription amount? And for agriculture customer, we use the last year energy usage, which happened to not be the right way to do it, because the way the agriculture energy use, it depends a lot of precipitations, and therefore if there's a wet year, then then the next year it's not a good indications to set the subscription. So definitely a major challenge when it comes to developing a real-time pricing design that is less risky, right? But then also at the same time try to accomplish what it intends to do. Next slide. Yes. Okay. So we're going to have 3 pilots. Basically, actually, as Eva mentioned, all 3 pilots is actually going to roll out and available in November. Originally, the 2 pilots, the new expanded pilots for agriculture customers and the commercial and industrial customers, supposed to start in January 2024, but then due to many different reasons, it got pushed back to November of this year. So as you can see, we have a RTP pilot focused on VGI, one for agriculture customer, which is like an expansion of the VCE pilot, and one that's for West and non-West customer. Just want to point out that some of the key challenge and area focus is the weight design, how to engage customers, partnership with automation service provider, CCA coordination and adoption is a big one. in order for us to launch the pilot, we have to have the CCA agree to participate. If they do not participate, then their customer would not be offered, because our rate have a generation and distribution element in there. So this RTP pilot would only open to CCA customer who CCAs are willing to participate. With that, now I'm already over time. So thanks.
Thank you, Albert. And over to Denver. Whichever one you want.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, thank you to LBNL and thank you to the CalFlexHub for inviting SMUD to participate in this symposium today. We're advisors to the CalFlexHub. We don't have a specific pilot that we're offering to the collection of research here, but we're very much in the middle of this conversation along with the rest of the California stakeholders around creating a cleaner and more flexible grid with the help of our customers as participants and as technology resources that the grid can come to rely on in situations not only of stress, but situations of sort of economic efficiency as well. We are a community-owned, not-for-profit public utility serving customers a couple hours east of here in the capital region of California. We're community owned and operated in the sense that our customers vote on an elected board, 7-member elected board that sets our policies and governs our strategies and operations. In 2020, our board and our community challenged us through a climate emergency declaration to come up with a plan to decarbonize our grid by 2030. You can move to the next slide. Staff at SMUD responded with a very ambitious plan to meet a very ambitious goal to transfer or ramp down our 5 thermal energy plants. We're a vertically integrated utility. We operate generation all the way down to retail customer services. But our decarbonization plan, now 6 years out, is focused on 4 key elements. One is ramping down the use of our thermal power plants. 2 is replacing those with reliable clean energy services from solar, wind, and large-scale utility storage. Those resources take time and effort to build, and the third tier here is our new energy technologies that include load flexibility, long-duration storage. We're looking into carbon sequestration and other sort of breakthroughs in business models and breakthroughs in technology that can help get that last 10% of emissions out of our supply mix that are going to be the trickiest to match with both demand side and supply side services. The last and most perhaps important piece of our decarbonization plan is to make this transition in a way that retains our compact of affordability and reliability and convenience with our customers. We don't want to undermine or undercut those traditional services that our customers have come to depend on, but to create opportunities for them to participate their resources in the balancing of our cleaner grid going forward. You can go to the next slide. There's an assortment of different approaches and technologies and grid services enabled by load flexible customer assets. And we are taking a buckshot approach to realizing the potential of those resources. Our customers, 98% of them are on time of use rates now. We've seen significant impacts to peak loading due to the rate alone. We offer a critical peak pricing rate to our customers with automated technologies. We're seeing that take a chip out of our peak loading as well during the summer. And I think it would be on this side for you guys. Again, we're pouring resources into community scale renewables, community scale storage. And then in the middle of this spectrum, there's these trade-offs that we're trying to find between grid service precision and customer control and preferences. So we're designing programs to entice customers to participate their batteries, to participate their vehicles, to participate their intelligent appliances and programs that deliver economic benefits to them and value-added services in terms of resiliency and cleaner energy. Next slide. So we're pursuing hundreds of megawatts of load flexibility very urgently within our load flexibility portfolio. Because of the appreciable forecasts we have for behind the meter battery energy storage to be coupled with rooftop PV systems, and the electrification of transportation to bring a lot of additional and flexible load in the form of mobile batteries to our customers. We've got a real focus on creating reliable grid services from large scale customer batteries and large scale customer electric vehicles batteries as well. Those are sort of the areas of emphasis for us right now in our program design. We offer programs for residential batteries, commercial batteries, programs for managed charging, leaning into V2G, and we've also got a large thermostat program that customers can choose to participate in critical peak pricing or incentive-based predictable subscription model. Thanks. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Denver. So I have a few questions for our panelists, and then we'll open it up to questions from all of you. Remember to add those to the Zoom chat, whether you're here or online. So first, I want to ask Jeff, what overall impact do you think the expanded pilots will have?
Yeah, so we're really targeting electric vehicles, in particular fleets. So we're trying to get companies that have you know, a large number of electric vehicles, like maybe a school district that has electric buses. We're hoping that we can get them to kind of join on the export pilot. And what we're hoping to see is, you know, for affordability, we're hoping to see that they get some cost savings for the actual participant. We're also hoping that we see some peak shaving to make for a more reliable grid. And then on top of that, we'd like to measure if there's going to be any greenhouse gas reductions from not having to run peaker plants during the heavy on-peak hours, and instead we can start discharging some of these other resources that we have available.
Albert, same question to you. What anticipated changes and impact do you see from these expanded pilots?
So we think this is a good opportunity for us to better understand how customers would respond to rate. The utilities have many years of experience participating in DR programs. But at the same time, we are not quite sure how the customer would respond to high price, right? Would they just feel like that, oh, the utility raised our rate, you know, that's why? Or would they actually look at the price different and seeing an opportunity to better manage, you know, the energy use and invest on low flexibility? And also, on top of that, right, it takes a whole ecosystem to be successful. The automation service provider, right? Obviously we can, you know, it's unlikely that we can rely on residential customer to look at a rate on an hourly basis. So it requires ASP, and how many ASP and what kind of ASP is going to show up to join the pilot is, we have some idea, but it's still early in the early phase. You know, we don't have right now, because we're launching in November, so we don't have the data of exactly, you know, how many ASP is going to show up. So that itself is going to be a major data point on how successful this will be, because, you know, we will rely on ASP to help us to help optimize customer load.
Denver, I'm wondering, you know, operationally, what changes do you see utilities needing to make? What changes has SMUD made, and what do you anticipate happening next when you think about the implementation of flexible load?
I think there's many layers to the answer to that question, Emily. I think first of all, I can tell you that SMUD has benefited from having clear strategy and policy alignment. Internally and externally. Our zero carbon plan is our core strategy for this decade of 2020, and all of our resources are being asked to align their efforts to achieve that goal with the understanding that there's nothing simple or direct about making that transition to clean energy resources being the only resources that we depend on to serve our customers. So strategy, policy, and addressing the underlying culture that's going to implement and deliver on that strategy. So that's got to be something that's created and modeled from the very high levels of the utility all the way down. Next, to realize the full potential of customer resources, they have to be addressed in a very coordinated way within the utility. They can't just modify the load and expect to avoid the costs of distribution infrastructure, generation capacity, energy services, to provide the customer benefits and the community benefits if all those stakeholders aren't engaged in thoughtful and thorough conversations about how to share those resources across those value domains. So we've got our distribution engineers, our bulk system operators, our market operators, all in conversation together about how to share these resources across those operating domains. And of course, the customer domain through program implementation, and what it looks like for those parties to have shared visibility, to have shared influence over the load flexible resources, and ultimately to make sure that they can provide grid services that can be relied upon to displace investments in generation, to displace upsizing service transformers or substations or conductors. And in the near term, our operators and our planners are used to services that look more like steel in the ground. So we've got the challenge to gain their trust around customer resources within those contexts that require high precision and require, a high degree of predictability and reliability. So Cynthia talked about sort of the muddled approach that it takes through programs to provide access for all these different resources to participate in grid flexibility. And that's not trivial. It's actually quite difficult. So I think in addition to what we have to do internally to align all of our stakeholders to coordinate the value of these resources, we have to do that externally too. I think we have to be transparent about the business models that we're looking for service providers to meet us with. I think we have to be standardized in the way that we communicate information to those service providers, both for enrollment and operational activities. And I think we also have to be standardized and transparent about the way that we contract with them and incentivize them to help us create that seamless pathway for customer participation.
Thanks, Denver. So next I want to ask Eva about what key business models, partnerships, and policies would support the success and scaling of these future programs?
Right. Yeah. So, for this to really be impactful, when I was listening this morning to Commissioner McAllister about the 7,000 megawatt, if I got that number correctly, goal, it's really important to make sure that we think about how to make these offerings at scale. And the two things that I would recommend, the first is accessibility, and the second is simplicity. I'll talk about accessibility first. I know for a pilot, the current pilot, for example, is only working with automation service providers. And for our expanded pilot, we're actually going to be opening it up to customers who are not just working with an automation service provider. Obviously, an automation service provider an ASP can provide a lot of benefits. They can better manage your load and increase the amount of load that you're providing. But when you look across the country at who has dynamic rates, when you want to get to the scale of thousands of customers, right? Today we have 40 customers on our pilot. And when you want to get to the scale of thousands, you need to go beyond just offering through ASPs. And that's what we're going to be doing with our expanded pilot. We're actually going to have an enrollment portal where anyone can sign up, and then they can access the prices directly. So that way we're allowing for growth at scale, because ultimately customers are not always going to want to work with ASPs, even though they provide benefits. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing is around keeping this simple for customers to understand. I know we have an ultimate vision that the appliances will all, do things automatically, but you have to be able to set up those appliances. And what we heard from our customers is even if they have things automated and set up, they still want to have a general understanding of the rate and how it works and have some sort of comfort level that they're not going to get some unexpected bill at the end of the month. So what you need to do is make sure as we continue to iterate through here, this is the crawl, walk, run, right? We're taking baby steps, and each iteration that we make, we have to continue to think about how to make this offering for our customers simple and easy to understand, so they clearly know what to expect the next day with their appliances and equipment, so they're comfortable and they're willing to sign up and tell others about how great the rate is. I think that involves a lot of education on the side of on the side of the utility, as well as our partners that we work with. So that's going to be of continued importance in making sure that customers understand how things work and can get a comfort level in order to move forward. So those were the two things that I would recommend.
Thanks, Eva. Jeff, is there anything you would add on models, partnerships, and policies that are going to be needed for the future success of these programs?
Kind of like what the representative from SMUD was talking about. It's really important to kind of align the internal business processes around all this. So I know that with our pilot, we're partnering very closely with our clean technology team and our electric vehicle team to kind of try to identify customers that are most likely to take advantage of this rate. And that seems to be a key thing, is that we need to align everything from marketing to the customer experience. So that's, again, looking at internal partnerships is going to be a key aspect of this, I believe.
Albert, what about it? PG&E, what do you need next to scale this?
Actually, I'm gonna phone a friend. I have the program leads of the RTP pilot here, and I'm sure he has some recommendations.
Thanks, Albert. Hey, everyone, I'm Craig Kopp. I work at PG&E, and I'm focused on as Albert mentioned, the 2 expanded pilots we're rolling out for ag and for commercial and res. Well, I think first off, Eva was spot on with some of the things she mentioned. I think those are things we would point to as well. But right now, as we're looking to roll these out, as Albert mentioned earlier, there's a big focus on ASPs and those partnerships. And it sort of represents a new model for us. Thinking about how the utility will send price signals and make them available to ASPs. ASPs will then be able to manage devices, sort of the extension of what's gone on with DR and other programs, but finding a way for us to manage that ecosystem of providers in a consistent way, and to allow them to conduct a certain amount of customer adoption and acquisition, and then to have the feedback from the ASPs. So managing this at somewhat of a larger scale than we have for some similar programs is certainly a focus for us early on.
Thanks so much. All right, it's time for questions. Scott, do we have anything in the chat?
Yeah, we sure do. We have our first question from Mark. It's for Albert. Can you please explain what an ASP is and how does that work in the pilot programs with customers?
Yes, sorry, we forgot to provide the acronym of utilities, which is like 5,000 pages. Okay. So ASP is the automation service provider. Okay. So it's a role that in the CalFlexHub white paper, and there's other pilots, that is basically a role for, imagine like, for the demand response, there's other aggregators, right? Like I hope people like the analog, and energy hub, like Connect, those are the aggregators, that help customers participate in DR programs. So the ASP, automation service providers, basically have a similar role for customer participate in RTP. We expect them to receive the price signals and either work with manufacturers or they are the manufacturers of the technologies to help optimize those price signals to an action, right? So that's the role of the ASP. And we actually expect that some of the traditional DR aggregators would become would probably help customers, if their customer want to be, in the pilot, then they may also help customer to manage their loads as an ASP, right? So that's the terminology. Sorry.
We love an acronym at Utilities. Scott, other questions from the chat?
Yes. So one of our remote attendees asked, what's the impact of dynamic energy pricing on distribution costs and transmission fees?
Jeff or Eva?
Eva, do you want to take that one?
Well, I can start, which that's a good question, and I don't think that we've really had a chance to properly measure that. Right now, like I mentioned, our current pilot has only about 40 customers, and they're on a dispersed number of circuits throughout our territory. So right now, the amount of impact that half of those customers are residential. The amount of impact that we're having overall today is very small, right? It's probably almost not measurable. As we go more up to scale and we think about larger customers participating, then obviously that's going to have it's going to have a larger impact. I mean, the hope ultimately is that this would provide benefits where, maybe there's not a need to have to do additional expansions or upgrades, right? That this could, in essence, mitigate some of those in the long term. That would be the hope, where we're striving for, but we just don't have enough data yet to substantiate that.
I can offer some thoughts on that. As you get lower into the distribution system, you have less load to flex, to manage around distribution constraints and manage around maintenance and outage operations. And without significant scale at the bulk level that you can identify and group at specific distribution locations, it becomes increasingly hard to depend on sort of the law of large numbers to deliver you some balanced services on average. So as we work with our distribution operators and distribution planners, even more so than our bulk system stakeholders, they rely a lot on precision. And so as as we're looking at locational pricing, we need to build those models that rely on AI and intelligent analytics to really give predictable services or predictable outcomes from those smaller aggregations of resources at the end of the distribution level. Our operators are looking more for grid services from virtual power plant collections, which is in the load flexibility umbrella, looking to enroll customers into programs that provide them more certain incentives for more certain operations dispatched by the utility. So those are some of the paradigms that we're experimenting with and trying to figure out how to get distribution level certainty such that, again, we don't have to rely on an additional switch or an additional transformer to alleviate the constraint, that those operators can start to trust the resources will do what they're predicted to do in order to defer that cost.
Questions in the room? Oh my gosh.
Not that loud. Hi, I'm Kelly Kissick from the Energy and Efficiency Institute at UC Davis. So Eva, following up on your suggestion for simplicity and transparency, and this, I guess, is a question for the 3 IOUs that offer these things. Have you published the historical real-time rates on your website in a publicly available spot? And if not, would you? So we can see them?
Yeah, this is Eva. I'll go ahead and start that conversation. That's our intent, is to well, our intent isn't so much to publish the historical, but our intent is to publish a forecast of future, like the hope is that we're publishing a kind of like a 3 or 4 day look ahead. So obviously there's the critical piece is the day ahead, because that's what you're actually going to be build against, right? So that piece is critical. But then there's probably, if we're here on a Tuesday, you're not just wanting to know about what are things looking like on Wednesday. You're going to want to know about Thursday and Friday and Saturday as well. Some decisions may be multi-day decisions for you, right? You may not be using, it's air conditioning you use every day, but maybe electric vehicle charging you don't need to charge every day. So there's relevancy in showing prices several days ahead, and that is our ultimate intent for dynamic pricing. The hope is that we can do something similar like that with our expanded pilots, and then our future rates, of course, would need to have those as well. So yeah, that's where we're trending. I think it's critical for customers to be able to see that and get a comfort level with what to expect.
Look in the past, we could evaluate rate, and that you can't see them. They have no idea of what happened in July or what happened in December or something. Why don't you publish the real-time rates so people can see it?
I don't know that Eva could hear you, but Albert.
Okay, so at this moment, we do not have a real-time rates. So, so before the pilot projects, we don't have a real-time rates, right? So for the VCE pilot, the real-time rate started when the pilot starts. So we only have the rates, and then when it comes to rates, it's a little more complex, right? Because there's a generation portion and the distribution portions. The most dynamic part, is the generation portions, and the distributions are very fixed, mostly fixed, okay? And so, I just want to point out that in the pilot, we are actually trying to learn how do we develop a dynamic distributions, based on the different distribution circuits. So that's something that, PG&E and I think Edison's are also trying to figure out how best to do that. But when it comes to hosting historical price, I mean, if you look at generation, I mean, CalISO have all the generation price in the past, like there is something that's available to the public, but then it is the distribution portion that is not available, and that part is not that much dynamic. So, I hope in the future we do have a plan to publish real-time price.
And no, thank you. We will be publishing the rates, and that will include all the historical prices as we move forward. So it won't just be about, a year from now, you can see the 7-day look ahead. You will also see all the historical prices. You can download them. since the beginning of the pilot. So that will be available as we move forward. I'm not sure if that fully covered your question. Okay. Yeah.
And Jeff, does SDG&E have a planned approach for making the information about dynamic rates through pilots available?
Yeah, we're going to have it posted on our website. I'm not sure how much history we're going to include. Obviously, there's a cost benefit analysis that has to be done with that. But just like Albert mentioned, the CAISO prices for the day ahead price is available historically, and that's available to anyone.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Hey, this is Orly. Eva, the question is for you and Albert and everybody. We are an ASP for the phase 1, and we're excited about the phase 2, but it seems that phase 2 is focusing on larger loads. So it's a smaller or almost not a big opportunity for residential or small, medium commercial. Eva, you mentioned there's 5% savings. Can you explain, if we have time, a little bit more about what led to that? It's going to be very hard for a certain population to even consider participating.
Yeah, sure. So first off, just to clarify, it's 0.5%. So it's a little bit under, it's 0.5% savings. And that was through thermostats. So, I think as we move forward, there's still a role for thermostats to play in the scheme of things. Forget who it was. I want to say maybe Denver was showing a chart of, all the impacts that they expect to have. And as you saw on their thermostats, we're still a key player, right? So obviously there's electric vehicles that are going to have, larger load that can be flexed during that time. So there's going to be, I think, a greater reliance on electric vehicles. But the critical things here, how we got those savings are there's technology around managing customers' devices, right? So that those could be thermostats or anything else. And the thought is ultimately we're not going to be we're going to be device agnostic, right? Like all of these devices have a role to play in getting to that overall goal. So I think that there's still a place there, I know for the pilot, it's very focused on larger loads. And, we're striving to meet that 50 megawatt goal for SCE, but, in the larger scheme of things, there's absolutely a place for thermostats to play. Hopefully, Orly, that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that our expanded pilot focus mostly on commercial and industrial. I think, as a matter of fact, we welcome residential customers. Residential customer, doesn't matter what class they have the same incentive level, right? So we are not targeting more on the non-residential side. So in the preliminary results, we have actually more ASP that we have a lot of ASP that's focused on EV, and a lot of them serve residential customers. And so I'm not surprised that we may have more focus on residential in the beginning. Obviously, we have the traditional agriculture vendors that, who are interested in expanding agriculture from, beyond VCE pilot. But yeah, I just want to point out that it's ASP driven. So, it's going to be depends on who their customer class they are focused on.
Thanks for all the questions. I want to thank our panelists, Albert, Eva, Jeff, and Denver. And I also want to thank Marian and Jingjing for allowing us to continue to come and partner on this. It's such important work. It'll really drive whether we're able to decarbonize the grid. So thank you for being here today, and thank you to our panelists.
Thanks again for that great panel. So we're now going to transition to the next session. That was the utilities panel, and the CCA panel just took place over in Building 91. So the next panel on residential technologies will be here in the auditorium in Building 50, and the over in Building 91 is the large commercial and campus panel moderated by Marco Bertoni. And let's see, those start at 10:55. So we got 10 minutes. Thank you.